your career path, you would want to have a career advancement. This is where personal brandings and networking take place. Your excellent reputations and competency will help you to go in a broader spectrum. You could explore new opportunities, be it at locals or international levels. Okay, so this club, Alhamdulillah, okay, they have events for the nationals and internationals event. Okay, so with joinings to this club, you will have the opportunity to uplift, to bring, to upgrade yourself. Okay, to become more skillful. Okay, with the right attitudes and plan, okay, you could have an outstanding career path and a balanced work-life experiences. For your information, Mr. Reza, actually UiTM also offer, okay, the safety and health officer courses, which is recognized by DOSH, Departments of Occupational Safety and Health. Okay, so we offer actually free for the students, which is normally the alumni. Okay, so we hope that before this we offer after the students passing through that course, they will go to Petronas and then to the industry, which is such as telecom, TNB, and so on. So we hope that after this, I will contact you and then to offer you that our students also actually they have the value add certifications, which is safety and health officer. Last but not least, with the Kalimah Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, I would like to announce the program Communications and Career Talk with Shell Ambassador is officially open. So with that, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and I pass back to Iman Fatini Fazli. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Professor Sari, for the opening speech and the commencement of this event. Dear participants, for today's talk, we have brought to you an amazing speaker, Mr. Reza Muhammad Arif. For your information, Mr. Reza is the Communication and Brands Relation Advisor of Shell Downstream. Interestingly, he has also been managing the Shell Eco Marathon Malaysia and Shell Malaysia MotoGP Communication since 2017. I'm very sure that all of you are probably really psyched up right now to get started. So without wasting time, let's invite up Mr. Reza Muhammad Arif.
Hi, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. Assalamualaikum. Very good afternoon to all here today for making your Saturday to be with us. I think it speaks a lot for those of you who are here. And first of all, I'd like to thank the Dean of Students Affairs, Department Professor IRTS, Dr. Ahmad Asari Sulaiman, Associate Professor Dr. Azman, Program Director Nur Nazifa, and of course Moderator Iman Fatini. Thank you so much for having me here today. So yeah, I think that was a really positive thing to hear regarding the HSSE or the safety officer certificates that is going to be open to you guys. That is something definitely that will be a value added, because safety in all industries, not just oil and gas, is very important, because the number one rule is to ensure that you go home safely to your family, and you are able to work safely, because in every day our health and our safety is the highest importance, right? So that's also what we advocate here at Shell. So just to give you guys a bit of background before I go into the slides. So I like to make it a little bit more informal for you guys, because I do want to hear a lot more from you too. Again, I may be in the industry for quite a while, but every time I work with Share Eco Marathon students, be it UiTM or the other universities, I learn more from them than I think they learn from me. Um, Also, just a quick note, I am not a technical person by background. I will show a little bit of my career path, and I do open for questions along the way. Whatever questions you may have, please put it in the chat. I think Iman would help out with that. And if you do want to come off mute and ask your questions, that's also very much welcome. Again, this should be a 2-hour engaging session, I hope, and not just me speaking. I'm not a lecturer by profession, nor am I a tutor in any sort of juncture. So I can speak both in English and Bahasa, so I will interchange in terms of language as well, if that's okay. So yeah, so do I go straight into the slide pack?
Yeah, sure. We would love
Sure.
to see what you have.
All right. Let's see. Uh, all right. Let me know when you can see the slide.
All right, we can see it now.
Cool. All right. So I can't see you guys. Hold on. I think I can do that. Let me just put this at the side. Technologies. All right. Cool. So very, very warm welcome to all of you. So as you can see at the slide, I put the photo of UiTM Eco Planet. This is back then in 2019, where we had the Share Eco Marathon or Make the Future Festival here in Sepang. For those of you who were around or were part of the team, this was the UiTM Eco Planet team. I'm not sure if the car looks the same. I don't think so. But yes, it was definitely an amazing experience for the students who were there. Of course, this is pre-COVID, so everybody is, unmasked. So we're not too sure of how it would be in the coming future. But there are talks of once the vaccination rates and all that go up, and countries start to open their borders, that we will be able to see another physical event. All right. So as with all Shell presentations, there is a cautionary note. So in summary of this very, very wordy slide is that my opinions may not directly reflect the opinions of my organization nor Shell. So this is something that we use to ensure that we defend our brand, right? So I'm talking about brand here because our brand is a 32 billion worth brand. So anything we say may or may not impact the value of the brand. And my job at Shell is to defend the brand, right? So I'll talk about it a bit more later on. So I'll just go a little bit on a background. What you can see here is sort of my career trajectory, if you'd like to put it that way. Of course, I started my career as a barista, but prior to this, I was in school like all of you. I went to SMK DJ here in Damansara Jaya. Prior to that, I was my parents sent me to study at a Chinese school called SRJKC Yukchai. And prior to that, I was also in a Mandarin focused kindergarten. So I guess my parents back then thought that me having an additional language skill would help me. Of course, at the time, too young to know, too young to understand. But as I journey towards the years in my career, I finally understood. So going back to being a barista, this is a very, very key piece in my career journey, being a barista, because this is my first ever work experience out of school. So this is where you learn how to earn money for the very first time, right? Your own money, not not washing the car for your parents or cleaning the trash, taking out the rubbish, etc. To earn that 5-10 ringgit from your parents, if some of you are in that situation. And then most importantly is dealing first first time being able to deal with customers who are paying you for a service, right? So very, very important. People are paying you for a service. And then after becoming a barista, I went on to study in Monash University. I studied psychology and communications because in KDU I did a diploma in mass comm. So naturally I thought, okay, I should do a degree in communications. But at that time, I early on I reflected that I don't think so. A diploma or a degree in communications would help me go further. So I decided to add on another major, which is psychology. So I've always been very, very interested with human behaviors, child development, or the social, well, more psychological side of things that determine how we perceive things, how we communicate, nonverbal communications, behaviors, attitudes, habits. So those things were very, very interesting to me. So I decided, okay, why not learn it? And I thought that was the probably course that didn't have a lot of mathematics, but I was very wrong because there was a high importance on statistics. So because we're thinking about we are researching on statistics to hypothesize things. So statistics were very, very key. Then after that, while I was studying in Monash University, I took a part-time job at Fly FM. So this is something that I wanted to do as a mass comm student. You're very um, you are I guess exposed to radio, film, TV, media. So I wanted to be in the industry to sort of understand, and apply whatever I've learned in my diploma days. So I became a Fly FM trooper. So this is the on ground guys. I think you guys may know Era Squad or Hot FM. Oh man, what are they called now? Zoomers. Yeah, so I don't think so. There's a lot of on-ground teams nowadays because everything's online. But this is back before the online days. So all the marketing on ground was done face to face. So this was, I think, we'll come back to that. There were some stories, being a fly fam or a barista. So do stop me wherever you want. And then once I graduated from Monash University back in 2013, 2012, 2013, I was finding for a job. And it wasn't exactly very, very clear what I wanted to do. So probably like many of you later on when you come out, but of course you guys are all engineering students, you would want to more or less skew towards more engineering courses. So I reached out throughout my networks, my family, my brother-in-law, etc., etc. So I was given a few paths. So um, in my head, I just said, let's just try everything and see which one would suit me best. So I went to the big four accountant firms. I went to a few banks. My mom was in a bank before, but she told me don't work for a bank, but it's okay. I went and tried for the interview anyways. And at the end of it, I got a friend who works in Shell who just said, hey, there's an opening, a mass hiring happening in Cyberjaya for human resources. So I said, okay, I think I've done psychology, I've done communications, I think I can do HR. So I've not had any HR background before this. So I went for the interview in Shell and I got I went for the mass interview and I got the role back in 2013. So I started my career in Shell as a tier one HR advisor. So what that really does is you are tied by the phone. You are tasked to pick up any queries from Shell staff, and what they will ask is about their benefits, the policies that's around the benefits, what happens if they need to claim, etc. So very, very operations based piece, but it was very, very eye opening because you know you never knew what it took for an organization to move its staff or to manage its staff in terms of being able to provide these benefits. You don't really think about those benefits in that way. You always think EPF so, EPF so. But when it comes to very, very personal things like medical, when it comes to family movement, a newborn, a death in the family, so all these benefits very, very important to sustain your staff. So the team in the HR space, I mean, if any of you have, excuse me, if any of you have parents or siblings working in the HR role, it's not exactly very, very simple, yeah, because you're dealing with things that are very, very close to you, which is dealing with your family or yourself in terms of health or money. So very, very sensitive things. It will that taught me how to manage my own emotions uh, while managing other people's emotions. So that's a bit of EQ or emotional intelligence piece that I will go back into later on. Then later on, I started or they transferred me to an expat transfer advisor. So what this role does is actually managing transfers of Shell staff from location A to location B, for example, from Malaysia to London or Malaysia to Singapore, Malaysia to Qatar, so on and so forth, and also receiving Malaysians coming back to Malaysia. So this one is a bit more, I guess, sensitive in a way because you're dealing with high profile Shell staff who are, given the expatriate roles, and expatriate roles are very difficult to get. You must be of a highly skilled, or high importance to the company that they will send you abroad to learn or to teach, and then come back and do all that. So these are very, very smart, strong personality people, and you are dealing with their money, you're dealing with their family, and they're dealing with their ambiguity, yeah, in terms of movement. So there's like kids schooling, or some of them have pets that they need to transfer, the whole house, all your furnitures, all your plates and all that. So it was a I wouldn't say high stress environment, but highly sensitive environment, because these are big, big bosses of Shell or the organization that you have to manage. So Alhamdulillah, I managed that quite well. So they promoted me to a senior expert transfer advisor, which means I get to transfer the higher profile staff. Interestingly enough, one of the staff that I transferred into Shell would be one of my bosses in my later my career. Um, excuse me, I'm just gonna have a quick drink. So after that, I was very lucky. Also, there was an opportunity to go for a secondment. This means that it's a organization where Shell and Petronas work together in the upstream space, where they're looking at a different drilling opportunities. Um, and what I was tasked was to manage the communications between the two. And of course, the staff on site, there were Shell and Petronas staff, and I reported to a Petronas manager. So that gave me a lot of insight as to what a different oil and gas company would do, and what the national oil company would do in terms of managing its staff, or in terms of communicating, etc., etc. And then in 2015, there was a very, very big reshuffle within Shell um, that restructured everything, and that job was lost. So meaning that role was completely gone. People repatriated or returned back to their base company. So for myself, it was Shell. So I was not with a role. And mind you, in 2016, I was about to get married. So personally, it was a very, I guess, a challenging period, for that year because about to get married at the end of the year, but you don't have a job or you don't know whether you still have a job at the end of the year. So I'll come back to that also, how I sort of manage that. And then I went back to Cyberjaya as a communications advisor because I've been doing communications at the joint venture, and I have strong experience in Cyberjaya. So I had a very strong network, and they gave me an opportunity to manage all the communications for the Cyberjaya office. There's about 8 different departments: finance, IT, customer operations, all the functions. They're all there, and what you have to do is manage all 2,500 people in that um, space. And then as I was doing that, I had a very strong working relationship with the corporate affairs department in the Shell HQ, which then promoted me to external relations advisor, where I looked after the whole of downstream in terms of communication. So downstream is everything customer facing. So anything that you see which has a Shell logo, that's basically what we have to cover, right, in terms of brand. And then just very recently, 2021, which is this year, we had a group-wide restructuring. Um, and I was also very, very lucky to get promoted as the brands and comms relations, which I currently do. So what I am tasked with is I manage all stakeholder management, stakeholder areas that has to do with downstream, as well as this includes government, corporate, and all communication materials that goes out to the public or the businesses that we work with. And the bottom line is that I have to protect the brand of Shell for downstream Shell Malaysia. So that's a little bit of a background of my career journey. So I'll open it up for questions before I go over to the other slides.
Yeah, I guess we have a few things that we could talk about after listening to to your career journey since 2005 until now. So I think like one of the frequently asked questions by our students is like, do you think it's really a good idea to do part time while you're studying? Because you did that when you were studying, and how did you find it? Was it challenging, or did it really help you like build up your confidence?
So personally, for me, I always advocate for people to take up a part-time job when you're studying. The reason being is because, but I'm speaking on my experience studying in a international or non-local universities, because I'm not too sure how your timetables are. But for me, in Monash back then, the timetables were quite flexible. I wouldn't say flexible, but there's a lot of period of times where there's you have a bit more time. Of course, what you're supposed to do with that time is to study and do all your other stuff related to your studies. But I generally think if you were to take up a part-time job, you fill up your time a bit more productively. Reason being is that, but of course, it depends on the work, right? Nature of the work. But for me, when I was working at Fly FM, the nature of the work at Fly FM was that I was to go around um, around the country during the weekends, and sometimes do that during the weekdays for about 4 hours. So, but what it taught me is that it gave me a bit more. It gave me a bit more leeway in terms of decision making that I can do for myself. For example, if I wanted to go watch a movie, or if I wanted to buy a phone, if I wanted to do whatever that you guys do in your uni days, I could do that with more freedom because it's my own money, my own hard-earned cash. Um, and yeah, so, but on top of that, I'm also gaining experience um, through my working experience as a part-timer to connect, network with people who potentially may be my career path later on, right? So my suggestion or my personal opinion is that yes, but you have to find the right balance and prioritize. I think that's a bigger word, right? Prioritizing it. Not a lot of people can prioritize very well. Just because sometimes when you earn a little bit more money, you may stray off what you're supposed to be really doing at that time. But if you have a strong principle or strong understanding of why you're doing things, then inshallah, it will bring you back to why you're working in the first place or why you're earning the extra cash as a part-timer. Yeah.
All right. Yes, I totally agree. It's like whatever you want to do, even if it's part-time, you just have to focus on your priority. If you could actually manage it, then I'd say go for it,
Yeah.
gain the experience. So, Mr. Reza, do you have any stories of any eventful events that happened during your part-time work that lead up to who you are right now?
All right. So I think I'll take the Fly FM one, right? It's funny because for Fly FM, what you do is sometimes you go around the country and you do crosses. We call it crosses, where we open the booth and then we give things for free. And of course, one of the locations that just so happened is that it was at Monash University, and that's where I studied, right? So it's funny when you go into the university, you come in with your Fly FM uniform and you open your book, and then there is your lecturer say, "Eh, are you working with Fly FM?" Say, "Yeah, so this is what I do as a part-time job." And of course, now I don't have class lah, right? And yeah, we were giving away. We were giving away the items, we were doing the activities, everybody was having fun, etc., etc. But what's important there for me was that then after that, the lecturer knew me a bit more personally. So every time when we were to speak, anytime I angkat tangan or anytime I were to go to him to ask for things, it becomes very easy because we had that interaction or that eventful uh, encounter because he didn't know, and he thought it was great that a student working while studying, etc. So I think this would differ from person to person, but that was one. I think the other one I think I shared recently with you, Iman, was that my time as a barista in Starbucks. And yeah, Starbucks, you have 1,000 customers, right? Thousands and thousands of customers that come in. And the most memorable one was where when I was handling the cashier, a lady came in and asked for teh tarik. So there was, I had the opportunity to laugh, or I had the opportunity to push her away, or whatever it is. But I think at the time I was I was lucky that I managed to calm myself down and try to manage the situation a bit better, because I know she's very innocent. She's coming here to ask for something that we don't have. So what do, right? So as a customer service professional, you always try to tackle the issue at hand, which is you don't have something, but you can give something, right? So I explained to her, sorry, miss, this place we don't have teh tarik, but we do have, tea with milk, or we have coffee with milk. So it really depends on what you want. Um, of course, the prices are different. So that's something that you have to take note if you do want to continue to order. But I know in the end, she did order like a latte for herself and her family who came by. It was just her first experience, but I believe that experience after that, being not being ridiculed for not knowing something when you step into a store, I think I hope I've made her into a, a loyal customer of Starbucks at that time, because you go in no prejudice, you're not judged for whatever that you've said, and maybe later on you always think about that experience you had, and you continue to go to that specific brand because you were treated that way. So this specific experience is where I bring throughout my Shell career, right? Because when we look at communicating to customers, we have to assume sometimes it's the first time right? They're seeing your brand. The first time they want to pump your fuel safe. First time they want to speak to your cashier at the site. So we must always treat them as a guest, not as a random person, right? So if you were to treat somebody as a guest to your home, that's how you treat your customers outside. So that's what we advocate for, and hopefully you all have the same experience at Shell.
It's my second time listening to that story, and I still love it. And it really shows like your actions during that moment could change someone's perception of the company or the brand as well. So it's really important.
Exactly.
Okay, so Professor Asari just now commented that it's wow, very fast promoted from one post to another post. And that's true when we see like your career advancement, it's like get promoted very fast. So do you have any tips on career development? I guess this would be really helpful for our final year students.
Okay. um, so Alhamdulillah, I mean, thanks, Prof. That's something that I think there's a key, lah, right? Not everybody gets the opportunity. But having said that, I mean, as I reflect back to my career advancement, specifically in Shell, when I joined Shell, there were various mentors that I looked up to. So one was a manager that hired me um, when I first joined Shell, and I asked her, what does it take to advance here in HR in this specific department? And she said, very simple, Reza. What you have to do is you have to be proactive and you have to be very visible. As you can see in this department, there's about 200 to 300 of us. And what would make you stand out um, beyond the others, right? Everybody comes in with very various experience. Some engineers, some lawyers, or law graduates. I'm not talking actual lawyers, but yeah, law graduates, engineering graduates, or customer service, or whatever it is. But they're all doing more or less the same task, right? They all have the same objectives in that specific department. But come to a time where managers or team leaders are talking about appraisals, and when an actual position opens up, what comes back to them is who they remember the most, right? So it's same, I think, even in university, who the lecturer remembers the most is the person who asks the most questions, or the person that's, you know, or the person who doesn't ask any questions, or the person who scores straight A's, or the person who doesn't score any A's. So it really depends. But um, my objective of asking my mentor was that I understood what my goals were. I wanted to advance, and I wanted to advance quick. Because I never, personally, I don't believe in needing to be in a specific position for a certain number of years so that you can master the position or the role. Because certain things, I believe we are all smart enough to understand what the role requires, what you're supposed to do, and if you've done that, means you've done that, right? Means you've learned it, you've executed it, you've quote unquote mastered it lah. Of course, you won't master it completely, but for the specific task that you're given, you've done it well enough. Um, so with that, any opportunities that came about, even this expat transfer advisor, somebody had to leave and there was a vacancy, and I said, you know what? Why don't you give me a shot at it? I think I've managed expats pretty well as a tier one advisor, so I'm ready for the challenge. You can second me there. You don't have to promote me straight away. You can test me out lah. So of course that's what they did, and then eventually they moved me there as a department, and then I took it up, and then so on and so forth. So the main point here is understand what you need to do to advance, but you cannot make it up yourself. It must be somebody in the organization that has gone through the amount of experience in the organization to know and understand what it takes for people to move uh, move up a bit quicker than usual lah. But it's a lot of taking as well, and this will I will come back on personal branding. How they remember me as Reza, how did they, yeah. So the personal branding piece and the networking piece is very key in career advancements.
All right. I guess we could move on with your other slides because we really want to know about the personal branding and networking. So, just one last question before we move on. This is
Sure.
also a hot topic among students. What do you think is the number one thing, based on your experience working in HR, that number one thing that would improve or propel students' employability?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Well, number one, do things like this, share eco marathon. Okay, jokes aside. Yes, you have to get the industrial experience, not industrial experience, the industrial connection. Because during your time as, I guess, in UiTM or engineering student, you have opportunities to work on things like this, like share eco marathon, and I'm sure there's many more, Perodua and all that I've heard, or Proton, yada yada. So what that gives you is it gives you an insight as to what the industry are looking for, people who are, I don't know, a bit more critical thinking, who can speak well or can articulate their ideas well, or they really, really are ramping up um, a specific department in the organization, right? So that's one, understanding what your potential organizations that you'll be joining, what they want. Number two is uh, resume, right? So the very, very first thing in terms of resume, it has to stand out. Can you imagine the recruiter having to go through 100 resumes a day and trying to pick you out one over the 100? So you you stand out in that resume picking process is also key. So take every chance of your cover letter, of your resume to really sharpen it up. Have 10 people look at it, really look at it, and not give you what you want to hear. Yeah, give you what you need to do. You know, if there's a actual spelling mistake, there's a grammar mistake, or it doesn't sound quite right, hasn't to you get someone who can tell that to you. So there's various people out there now that does that. You know, people on LinkedIn who are recruiters who you can connect with, who are more than happy to help you go through that, or your professors, right? Your or your alumni, those who are already in the industry, to have a look. So that's why it's so important for you to have that network beyond your circle of friends or your circle of uni mates, because you never know who can help you out. Like for me, I'm very lucky. I had, my siblings who are in the professional careers, who I asked for their help to have a look. Of course, my mom, who was in the banking industry for about 30 years, I did ask her to have a look. But where I'm coming from is that, don't, because you don't have the experience now, doesn't mean you cannot tap on the experience of others. And everybody is more than willing to help if you ask them correctly, right? Not just tell them, hey, can you come and edit for me? And no, right? The way you ask people to help you out is, I really, really want to stand out in this CV or this resume. I do appreciate your tips, and see where I can have that tweaked, or work on it better. Yeah. So that's my tip. That's the pre-phase, right? That's just applying, and of course your LinkedIn, right? Now everybody's applying via LinkedIn. It's very important to put in really what you've done, your projects that you think may be small, but what it shows is that if you can take a certain project, let's take Shaiko Marathon for example, and put it into your CV. Yes, you work in a team that built a vehicle out of nothing, right? And you can put in like your budget, this is what you did, and then at the total, the outcome, how many kilometers you can travel with 1 liter of fuel. But of course, on top of that, what your specific task was, right, during that challenge. Maybe you handle the circuit board, and through the circuit board, you've managed to find this and that, and the efficiencies increase, etc., etc. But it's very interesting. But you cannot just put in like a paper. It has to be interesting to the layman term. So this is where I will talk about in my next slide. What is effective communications? Yes, you may have all the proof points, but if you don't know how to, not if you don't know, if you're not sure on how to make it succinct or make it relatable to the people reading it, then it'll be very, very difficult, or it'll be a missed opportunity to teach someone or to make it very, very interesting. So yeah.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Reza.
Yeah.
So I'll highlight the points for our participants. The first one is making sure that you get involved in like some kind of organizations. The second one is your resume. The third one is to make sure that you're not shy to ask help from others, but at the same time, make sure you ask it politely or in the correct way. You
Yeah.
just ask someone to help you put your resume. And then okay, so Mr. Reza, maybe you can continue on with your next slide.
All right. Thanks. All right. So this is going to be what is effective communication? So this can be very different from people to people, or person to person, or organization to organization, or when even you YouTube it, or when you check it out on LinkedIn. But for me, or throughout my experience as a communicator, the main three items that we look at is most importantly, is it authentic? Are you being very authentic in your communication, right? And then what are you trying to improve? Are you trying to increase the trust, or are you trying to influence something? So I'll give some examples later on. So for facts, is it a fact, right? When we're talking about facts, it's 90% of people do this and that, but is it really a fact, or is it an opinion, or is it a science, right? If it's a science, are you the right person to be saying it? Because it may be done by somebody else and you're just paraphrasing or you're quoting, but that's 10 years ago. So all these things you have to take into consideration when talking about things in general. But the most important thing is why. I think even in engineering, whatever that you build, whatever solutions or that you are trying to engineer goes back to the why, right? There must be a problem, solution they are trying to tackle. It's the same way communicating. Why are we saying this? Why are we putting this font? Why are we putting this photo? Why why now? Why not later? Why this person is saying that saying this on behalf, and why not the other person, right? So a lot of questions come with regards to effective communicating or effective communication, and understanding your outcome is the most important piece. So take for example Share Eco Marathon, right? So if you're a student in a Share Eco Marathon team, um, when you want to post, take for example, post something on Instagram, is it very authentic, or are you just ticking the box? If you do understand what I mean. So is it something that you really want to share, or is it something because captain asked you to share? And then it becomes very, not fake, but less authentic. Because if you really want to share, let's say something very important, like, oh, we received a milestone today, and the milestone shows us that now we can go on to build the engine or whatever it is. So where I'm coming from is that when you want to post something, even on things like Instagram, you have to be very authentic about it. And it doesn't mean a long caption. It's just, maybe the caption is, we did it, as short and sweet, but it's authentic, because we did it means we got onto the final stage, or we got onto the international stage, or whatever it is. But the main key here is it was authentic, and that would drive people's perception in terms of trusting your brand, or trusting what you say, or you are trying to influence them to do something, right? When it comes to facts, opinions, and science, This is very, very important in today's world, because not everything is a fact. Uh, as you know, there's various messaging around that goes in either your WhatsApp or Facebook and all that. And to really make it a fact, to say that it is a fact, you have to do your due diligence, right? So for me, take for example, when we when we want to talk about our fuels, yeah, so we have to be very, very clear what is a fact and what is based on a study. Yeah, so if the fact is A, state the fact A, but whatever is based on the study, state that is based on the study of whatever your variables, etc. at the time. Why is this important? Is because people can call you out. People can research you very, very easily, Google you, and when they bring it back to you or mirror it to your face, that hey, you actually said this, but actually it's this. And if at that time, whoever that's managing it, even if let's say it's 5, 10 years later, the person will have a very, very difficult time to defend why we said it at that point of time. So this is what I generally do on a daily basis. I question the marketing teams or I challenge the marketing teams. If you're really going to say what you're going to say, can you defend it 10 years later or 5 years later? If yes, then good. But if no, then we might have to tweak it a little bit, right? And the why piece on the right. Once we understand the why, this is the biggest questions we always ask. So why do you need to say this? Why do you put it in bahasa when your audience is more English speaking? Or why don't you put it in Mandarin if your customers are mostly Chinese? Or why don't you use Asian male to represent a bit more resonance or relevance to the customers when they are, let's say, truck drivers, etc. So this is the question that I ask a lot. And so where all this come into place is what's underlining it, right? So the emotional intelligence. So being able to put yourself in the shoes of your customers. For me, for example, I always have to think like a customer when I see all these communication materials or marketing materials that's being pushed at me, be it Facebook, video, YouTube, whatsoever. I have to understand what is going on as a consumer, and if it is not relatable to me as a consumer, then it wouldn't work, right? Um, So this EQ piece is very, very key. I think I'll go into it after this. I'll go first, yeah, and then confidence. Even uh, so, confidence is very subjective, right? Uh, you have to have confidence when you're speaking in general, but confidence, there's a lot of bits and pieces to it. It's not just when you're speaking publicly. It's the confidence in your work. It's the confidence in your materials that you push out. Take for example, if I were to speak speak back. Oh, well, sorry. So if I were to speak to you in just bahasa, I may not be as confident as I would sound because it's not my native language. But for some of you, you're more comfortable and confident when you're speaking in bahasa, and which is fine, right? It's just that you have to understand your audience as well. If your audience can understand you, then that's great. But if they don't, then you may have to tweak it a little bit. So that's on confidence, and there's a lot of things that you can do to increase confidence. I just recently saw a TED talk on how 2 minutes of power posing increases your testosterone levels and lowers your cortisol levels. What it means is that it makes you super confident while making you less stressed. And when you're super confident, you sound better, you speak better, whatever you say gels, and you feel very much better about yourself. So you would ex, you would ex, you would show that confidence. But that's just by posing, let's say doing this. standing up correctly, posture is right, and what it does is actually body can your body can make your mind shift. Yeah. So a lot of things to with confidence relates back to your health, relates back to your posture, how you think you feel, how you think you look, how you think you speak, how you think you sound. So confidence is something, yeah, you have to go about it a bit more, I guess, on a daily basis. Then communicating effectively, you have to be respectful, right? Because in this day and age, um, you never know who you might offend. So this is something that we take very, very seriously in Shell because you're dealing with the masses, you're dealing with Malaysians, or you're dealing with people international stage. So what you say is very, very important, that you do not miss out any, or you include any and everybody, right? Because you are a company that believes in diversity and inclusion. So your communication, your language, your tonality, it has to be very respectful. Um, so this respect piece is very, very important, even for your daily, right? I mean, every time you have a lecture, it's the respect of paying attention, or is the respect of saying hi, or is the respect of being attentive. So respect goes a very, very long way. So this is a little bit on that. I think I'll go into your questions later. And an open mind. So you to have respect, EQ, confidence, you need to have an open mind, because you don't know where people are coming from, what their perception is, or where their opinions are coming from, right? So take it in, take a step back, and then maybe have a stab at it. So uh, you never know what the situation is with a specific person, or when you're speaking. So effective communication is so broad. Um, but most importantly, I think, is being authentic in whatever you say, being very respectful, and then the whole confidence piece, EQ piece, and the open mind piece, it will come. Um, just understanding what the outcome of your communications is. So I would love to hear your questions on this, because it's very, very difficult to pinpoint uh, how to go about it. Yeah, it's a soft skill, but it's also very difficult to pinpoint how to go about it.
All right, Mr. Reza, just now you have talked and presented on effective communications and all of the things that comes with it, like the EQs, confidence, respect, and open-minded. So it's probably easier to apply all of this if you're communicating with someone you know. You just want to improve the communication, but how to handle it when you need to communicate with a group of strangers and you do not know much about them?
So if you're communicating to a group of strangers and you don't know much about them, really depends on what you are speaking about, right? Because if you're talking about something that you're not too sure about, then you would be less confident. You would be a bit more reserved in what you are going to say. So, like, let's say today, right? Talking about communications with you guys, or thinking about branding, networking, something that I'm quite well versed with. So I'm not at all shy or afraid to manage it. But if you ask me to talk about engineering to a bunch of engineering students, which I do not know anything about, then I would be 100% nervous. So the back point on that is that to speak to someone, you better know what you're speaking about, right? If you don't know, then you better read up, or maybe you're not the right person to be speaking on it. So you have to evaluate that situation. But yeah, so I think in the probably in the university space, so sometimes if you don't feel like you're confident to do it, you can raise up your hand, right? You can say, I'm not confident to do it because so and so, and maybe as a team you guys can figure out how best to go about it. Okay, so maybe you do this part and I'll do this part, but we do want to make sure everybody speaks. So yeah, it's a lot of push and pull, give and take, and really understanding whose strengths are what. And it doesn't matter if yeah, if the person is too afraid to speak publicly, why would you push that person to speak publicly, right? He or she might faint, or I don't know, have cold sweats and all that. It's not a um, it's not a fun experience to have. So try not to push people to do things that they feel they're not too confident to do as well at that point of time. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. I agree with that. Yes, you need to really know your material in order to deliver it well. Because if not, you'll be scared of yourself, and then you'll be scared of the other people looking at you.
Yeah. And then
And one,
subconsciously, and your body language will be very, very different. So you'll be like, you always like takut, or yeah,
mhm.
yeah. You second guess
Yeah, and
whatever
that
you say, you'll be
nervousness
second
will
guessing
show.
yourself. Yeah, it will show. It will definitely show.
All right. Another thing that I would like to ask is that usually when we are in a group or in a team, we will always have clash of opinions with other people. So how do we communicate effectively when we are talking about something completely different and this person doesn't agree with what we're saying?
Yeah. So in the working world, okay, probably in the university we don't do this, but in the working world, every time you start a meeting or a team huddle, you have to set the stage right, right? So you have to tell, okay, so team, we are here to have a conversation about this, and all your opinions and feedback is very much appreciated, and this is a safe space. There's no stupid or wrong questions, but also be very respectful of how you address feedback, right? And if you keep reminding that on your team conversations, you keep reminding it, and it allows people to really be comfortable to speak out. And if you as a moderator, or you are running the session, you yourself have to take the proactive approach of really listening. And then for those who are not too verbal, you have to invite them. Some people cannot speak when they're not asked to. I don't know why. Maybe it's an Asian thing, but yeah. But when you ask them, say, "Hey, do you have an opinion, or do you have something to say about this?" And then they will come out with a bunch of things. They actually have it, but they need to be asked to do it. So it really balanced lah, right? But when you talk about difference of opinions, so if it's a safe space, if you are the person that is at the receiving end, so if you've said something and somebody is giving you a different opinion about it, and if it hurts you or challenges you, you have to take a step back and not react, right? So you have to process what is actually being said, and then if you're not sure, you ask again, and then from there you can make a better approach on how you manage it. Yeah. So I think in general, people are very quick to react. So where we are trying to say is, try to process, ask again if that is indeed what the person means. If it's not, then they will clarify, right? But if it is, then you can process it and decide whether you should agree, disagree, or maybe it's for a discussion later on, or maybe it's not even relevant to what we're talking about today, right? Maybe it's just a burst of comment, random, which is not helping the conversation. So it really depends.
All right. And one more thing, we as students, we have a lot of presentations, and I'm very sure like when we're in the working world, we have a lot of teaching to do. So what do you think is the best way to get your points across during presentation, pitching, or even meetings?
Short and sweet. So that's the main thing, right? If you have something to say, it should be able to be said in a short amount of time, and as quickly as possible, right? Because people have very short um, attention span. So you have to be very, very clear and straight to the point in what you're trying to deliver. And it doesn't mean that you're given, let's say like today, right? I'm given 2 hours. I'm not going to speak for 2 hours because it doesn't help anybody if I were to speak 2 hours, right? But if I'm having a conversation with you and you're asking questions, then that's fine. So it's same, if you're given a presentation to do for 10 minutes, doesn't necessarily mean you have to use 10 minutes. You can even finish it in 2 minutes or 3 minutes if what you wanted to deliver was delivered appropriately. That's my take. I don't know what the university take is on these items, but in the working world, yeah, we always try to not waste anybody's time that's needed, right? So if a meeting sometimes is half an hour and you've already settled it in 10 minutes, then complete it. Give back people the 20 minutes, right? People have more things to do. So yeah, that's my advice.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Reza. And I think I would like to ask more regarding the emotional intelligence. Like you've mentioned before, that it's about trying to understand other people or trying to put yourself in other people's shoes. So, is there some ways for you to improve your emotional intelligence skills or trying to understand people more?
I think the easiest way is to observe how you react to things, right? Or how your people around you react to things, and understand how uh, how somebody else's feel. So this is a lot to do with empathy, and not everybody has very high empathy. And this empathy piece is, I guess, you have to put a bit more of an effort um, to have, right? Let's say when somebody comes to you with a very sad story, um, you cannot react like you have to understand the situation, right? So you really have to see why are they coming to you and why are they telling you the story. So not so much a story, but first of all, you have to understand why are they choosing you. So are you, let's say, their best friend or their mentor, or are you just a colleague, right? So from there, then you can sort of decide how you're supposed to react. You cannot react just as you would with, let's say, your brother or your sibling or your mother. It's very, very different when it's family, but it's also very, very different when it's a colleague or a uni mate, and it's also very, very different if it's a customer or a boss. So you must always try to have a quick assessment of why why is this person doing this at this current juncture. So the point here is to take a step back and ask them why, or ask yourself why this is being done at that point of time. So yeah, that why piece is very, very important. So you can't really learn it, I guess. You have to be quick on your feet to ask yourself, okay, why is this happening, or why what is happening, or who is this person to me, right? So then you can decide how to approach it. Yeah.
All right. So I hope our participants paid attention to that. The first thing first is always try to observe and then try to understand them by asking yourself why. Maybe it will help your communication if you understand how why that person is acting that way or why that person is disagreeing to what you say.
Mm.
So I guess we could move on to your next slide now, Mr. Reza.
All right. So I mean, I invite people to put in the chat box, and we'll come to that. So I think before I go to personal brand, I think there's something in the chat box. From Adlina, how did your career take a big leap from being part of Lifetime Trooper to a tier one advisor in Shell? Do you attribute it to your communication skill or your academic skill or accreditation? Good question. A very, very great question. So from a Fly FM Trooper to a tier one advisor, um, I would attribute it to my communication skills, yes, because I needed to go through the appropriate um, appropriate interview process, which I believe at that time I was able to convince them why they should hire me. But also, of course, I had academically, my certificate as a communications and psychology graduate, and that is something maybe in the bracket of job requirements. That was what was needed, right? Because in the end, if the job requires a person to have a degree in something, then the person needs to have a degree in something, right? So yes, I would say my communication skills helped me through the door, but my academic skills and accreditation got me at the door. So yeah, so at the door and through the door, two different things. So cool. I hope I answered that question. Okay, so I'll go into personal brand. So this is very, very important to me, or this is something I'm really excited to talk about because uh, this is something that you will bring throughout, and you can start talking or you can start practicing now, which is what are you known for? So you can look back, right, when you're in kindergarten or when you're in primary and secondary, and then then in college or university, your personal brand changes, right? It changes because you are known for what you are known for changes, and it will apply personally and in your career very, very strongly, right? So this is all perception, but in order to drive that perception, you yourself have to be very clear on what people are perceiving you as, right? And you have to test that. You have to test the perception. Then only you can say confidently, say, okay, at work, the perception of me is so and so and so and so. If I deviate from it, it will cause some sort of questions. But if I stay within it, it's fine, right? Because this is the perception anyway. But the perception to be positive or negative, that is entirely up to you. I don't know anybody who would want to have a negative perception, but this is entirely up to you. So in the working world, there's a lot of talk, right? There's a lot of corridor talk, or there's a lot of, like I said, opportunities when leaders come together when they want to hire somebody for the role. And this is all about your personal brand, right? In a space where there are thousands of people, how do you stand out? This goes back to your LinkedIn, your resume, and everything. So this is all personal branding, and your personal brand has to be very strong, but it also has to be something that you believe what it should be, right? So take for example myself. Very, very. So when I joined a Shell, when they interviewed me, my story was, "Hi, I'm Reza. So uh, I've recently graduated from Monash University. I studied psychology and communications, and I was a professional race car driver prior to coming to this interview." So they said, "Wow, so what can you tell me a bit more about the professional race car driving?" So I said, "Oh, I joined the program, and I was picked out of 300 participants from Singapore, Brunei, Malaysia, and I was one out of 3 Malaysians who made it through." So that story would stick with them a very, very long time, right? So you have to find these kind of stories to make your personal brand. And from then on, when I joined the organization in the HR department, anytime people were to refer to Reza, they would say, "Oh, is that guy who worked with 5M, who was a professional racing driver." Um, but he also, studied psychology and communications. Doesn't matter. But then you see, your personal brand changes, right? What your perception is. So whether it's positive or negative, you also have the opportunity to mold it, right? By when people ask you, "Hi, can you tell me about yourself?" Right? So this goes back to every time when you have that job interview, or when you have that cover letter or in your resume, right? That about me section is so, so important, because from there they can know what sort of person are you. Are you a team player? Are you a perfectionist? See, are you very active, or are you very courageous, etc., etc.? So this piece, it will continue to work, but where I'm coming from today is that you have to figure out what is your personal brand. If somebody were to ask you today, can you tell me about yourself, you have to be very clear, um, because this is what you're going to be asked a lot in your interview session. And you cannot, you don't have to follow whatever the YouTube, and I mean those are great, but you have to believe in your story, right? So if let's say, take for example, my name is Iman. So I recently graduated from UiTM, but I also am a I also interned at Petronas, where I was picked out of 1,000 people, but it becomes a very easy to remember story. But that's a personal brand, and then later on you can build on that personal brand. So for me, this personal brand piece, I do invite a lot of questions as to how you want to go about it. Because for me now, in my working career, we have, so I have this thing that we recently did with our team, where you put a word cloud, and people just put in things what they think of you, and you can see your personal branding, whether it works when people are talking about you in this word cloud. So it's quite cool if you guys want to try it. Try it within your teams, right? And you see that it would give you a bit more feedback of how you've been portraying yourself. Are you, a person who is respectful? Are you a person who is outgoing, strong, fun, whatsoever it is? So it would give you that constant feedback. Then you can use it confidently, because people have been talking about you, or perceiving you as such anyway, that you are also very confident that when I say it, it is it is true, because people are saying that about me, right? So this personal brand piece will bring you a long way, right? Because people, when we're talking about personal brand, it's just like brand A, brand B. So let's say, comparing McDonald's and KFC, the brands are so strong for what they do, right? And it's the same for people. Um, you have to be strong in your brand, whatever, let's say whatever Reza is, whatever Iman is, no Nazifa is, Professor is. So as long as that brand is very strong and you're confident in your brand, then people will choose the brand based on those things. So I'll leave it at that first and open up for questions.
Um, I would like to ask, I really like this diagram. So generally, there's like two circles, one bigger one, then there's one smaller circle. So if our participants today would like to construct a similar diagram to help them understand more about themselves, like how would you suggest them to do it, or how would you instruct them to do it?
So maybe take your interests that are strong, that you feel strongly about. So let's say for me, right? So I'm a strong Man United fan. I love coffee. I go to the gym during lunch. Um, I'm also a professional MC, and I game quite a bit, and I bake quite a bit, right? So these are things that are a bit more unique, I think, to myself. Um, which are things that I'm interested in. So I'm interested in baking. So I'm interested in racing. I'm interested in games, and I'm interested in Man United, or I'm interested in coffee and gym. But these are things that I do every day anyway, right? And whether you know it or not, you can put it down, right? And whether it is something that will make you unique, then you can start to tick uh, which one is yes and which one maybe you don't have to mention lah, right? Because if you're not too, maybe you just got into it and you're not too sure what it is anyway, then maybe it shouldn't be part of your personal brand. But the inner circle, right? So this inner circle is where it's your values. So this one you have to get a bit more feedback. Um, let's say you can do those. I don't know whether tests. I'm sure there's a few tests that you can do, but this is just based on feedback on team meetings or my appraisals, my KPI conversations or conversations with because you have to request for feedback from your colleagues, etc. Right? So these are just general words that people have been saying about me, which I will put it in because that's the perception, and I would like to believe that I am all of these things, right? So this will give me a very strong brand, especially when I'm looking for the next promotion or when I'm going to maybe look out, or when I'm speaking to you guys. I have to understand that, okay, so I believe I am respectful, I'm friendly, I'm active, etc., etc. So it gives me a bit more confidence in being able to portray all these values. So it's a bit more of a like a mirror, right? But not about looks. It's a mirror of your values. It's a mirror of you as a person, of what you like to do. And this will shine, I mean, not shine, it will show every time you speak to a person or when you have a conversation or you have an interview. This is what will be going around in that conversation. Um, yeah. So you have to sort of, yeah, train yourself that this is what people are seeing or experiencing with you.
All right.
Mm.
And then just now, Mr. Reza told us a story about like when he went for an interview and then he said he's a race car driver that really piqued the
Yeah,
interest of the
yeah,
interviewer. So I guess that is something like we all didn't realize there's something interesting about us. Like even if you go for an interview and then you say you love baking, that would make people like really interested about you because not everyone likes baking.
yeah, exactly. So find your uniqueness and don't be shy to say it or to have a story around it, right? And some people think it's always a sad story. See, always try to make it a positive story, right? Nobody wants to really hear the sad stories when it comes to conversations like interviews and resumes. Even though those sad stories maybe later part, it may be a bit more on your resilience um, value, but always try to keep it a bit more of a positive thing. Yeah.
Mhm. Because I think sad stories also make it seems like you're trying to play on the sympathy or playing on the sympathy card to get the interest
Yeah,
of others. Mhm.
yeah. It can do that, and it may not be appropriate. Yeah, because so yeah, so you just try to always have it a bit more of a positive thing and something that people would think of. You think people might ask a bit more, and you'd be excited to talk about. Because if let's say you're not, a Man United fan, and people ask you about football, and if you're not excited to talk about football, then you shouldn't have that in your brand, your personal brand, right? You should maybe hide it a little bit. But if you're very, very, you're a strong gamer, right? Maybe you've gone through international or you've competed before, and you're very enthusiastic or very excited to talk about a certain game for whatever it is. Then yeah, you can use that. It's fine, right? Because through that excitement, they can feel that you are passionate. And when you have passionate people doing things that they are passionate about, and let's say they are passionate about engineering, they can use the same passion from that, let's say, gaming passion, and put it into the engineering piece, and it should be the same, right? The excitement should be the same when a person is quote unquote passionate lah.
All right.
Mm.
Okay. So when we're talking about personal branding, I guess some of us have heard about personal branding before, but it is still something that most students don't quite understand or they don't implement it very well. So maybe Mr. Reza, do you have any examples of weak personal brandings that you have seen while you're working in HR?
Oh, okay. So within within the organization, it's very, very difficult um, to to. It really depends, right? Who's visible, um, and why they're visible. So in the working culture, I think that question is a bit difficult, um, because it depends on interaction with them, right? So I cannot give you various examples, but yeah, so I probably have to come back to my personal examples, because I don't want to assume other people's brands. Um, for for me, I think what was very important or what was key is that I was very confident in my story as, Reza coming from so and so, used to be so and this is what I do. So it goes back to, if you are a student now, yes, but what you do as a student, or outside of the student life, will also play a big role in your story, right? And this is all about storytelling. Your brand, you have to tell a story. So maybe strong international people will be like, people like Bill Gates, people like Elon Musk, Steve Jobs. They all have or what's his name, the Virgin Atlantic's guy, Virgin Air. uh, yeah, I can't get his name now, but yeah, these are very, very strong personalities, and they're very confident in what they are already. So it yeah, your personal brand is about your own confidence in your story. So and you can work on it. Things can come off, things can be added, but as long as it's within your values and your own principles, then it's fine, right? If it's something that you don't value, or it's outside of your own principles, then it shouldn't be in your personal brand. Yeah, if you really don't like something, don't be associated with it, then it's fine, right? So at least you're comfortable with it.
Yes, and always remember to be authentic. So don't
Yeah,
try to be someone else.
correct. Don't try to be someone else. That's right.
Mhm. All right. So when we're talking about personal branding, also, it's usually linked back to your online presence or someone's online presence, especially on LinkedIn.
Mm.
So how do you suggest like we apply our personal brand in our online presence?
So on LinkedIn, um, yeah, so I touched upon it a little bit earlier just now. So when it comes to your projects and all that, that's things that you can input. But your interests, how you describe your about me, that's where it plays, where your personal brand is. Whether you want to tell people or not, that's up to you, because again, it is all your own page, huh? Nobody's forcing you to include additional than you're supposed to. So how I go about it is, I include my roles. I include a little bit about me. I put my photo in there. I make it very clear that I work for Shell. I am with Shell. I try to skew it towards, I'm a loyal employee. I also do additional curricular items, activities that are part and parcel of my job, and I am open to doing so and so. So my LinkedIn profile would give the impression that I am somebody in Shell who is approachable and would be able to connect with you and have a conversation should you want to, as a a normal LinkedIn person. So it really depends, right? If you want your LinkedIn to do that, then you can do that. But if you want your LinkedIn to be very a place where you put in all of your materials, your projects and everything, then it has to stand out, right? Maybe you need to include a lot of your videos of how you've innovated something, or you have to put out opinion pieces on, let's say, as an engineering student, I believe, I have an opinion on something. Then, you try to do that, and you can share it and all that. And if it picks up, then you can be a person who has an opinion on innovations, which is it's fine, right? It's just an opinion as an engineering student, and people maybe want to use that opinion and make a perception of you. So this is somebody who maybe you want to have a conversation with, or if your potential employer sees, oh, okay, so this person is actually very active in writing an opinion on innovations that, let's say, are energy saving, and that That means if this person were to apply in companies who are looking at energy savings or energy efficiencies, this person at least has a stronger interest than person B who doesn't have all this lah, right? So again, it's always back to visibility and standing out, right? What are you known for? So your LinkedIn profile should, yeah, if you have time to work on it, it should do that for you. So yeah, that's my take.
Okay. So, do you think it is appropriate for us to have things that are not related to engineering in our LinkedIn? Like maybe some things that we enjoy doing outside
Yeah,
of classes.
yeah. I think it would show it's fine. It will show that you are not, just a bit more. You're not narrow in your experience. Yeah. So having additional items on there, it's fine. But where LinkedIn is not is that it's not Facebook, right? So LinkedIn is not Facebook. LinkedIn is not Instagram. Um, it's a place where potential employers are looking at you, or you are looking at potential employers and your connections. Yeah, so it really depends on how you view LinkedIn. um, there has been instances where people use it to have a shout out as looking for job opportunities and all that, and that's fine, right? Because if they see the platform as such, then it's fine. So really depends. Uh, you can include non-engineering things in there just to show or to show that you are uh, you are excited and also have experience in other stuff besides engineering, which is fine.
I guess it kind of breathes in some human features to you.
Yeah, you are human, that's right.
All right. So I have no more questions. Maybe we can move on to the next part.
All right. Okay, so the next part is networking. So I think some there were some questions on how do I get how do I get to Starbucks, how do I get to Fly Fam, and how do I get to Shell. It was all due to my network. um, I did not get any jobs through Job Street, even though I've tried. I did not get any interviews through application process online. So all of the roles or the jobs of the companies I've joined, it was through a network. Um, it's either a friend of a friend, a family friend, an acquaintance I've met, or yeah, along those lines. So where I'm coming from is that for me, my network is my biggest opportunity um, for me in my career or non-career items, right? So this is where communicating effectively will come into place. Because if you see your network as an opportunity, that means everybody and anybody you communicate with um, has to have all this in place, right? So you have to be respectful. You have to feel that the next time they meet you, they will, they have a good impression of you. So this applies throughout, right? So your college mates, your uni mates, your professors, your lecturers, your tutors, everyone, right, can be a potential network, or is a potential network for your next opportunity um, down the line. So that's why we always say never burn your bridges. So even at work, right, whoever your boss is or your colleagues are, your subordinates is, you cannot burn any bridges because you never know. One day, either you become their boss, they become your boss, or they are the ones that might hire your son or daughter, or might be in a place. So you really never know. And Malaysia is so small. You really cannot have that um, bad network lah, so to say. But the positive things about network is that it gives you many opportunities, right? Opportunities that you've never had before if you don't know this person, or you've never met this person, or you've never spoken to this person. So, and network is very different from a LinkedIn network, right? So a LinkedIn network is just an add connection, but then what do you do from there is a totally different space. But I've also heard, I've also seen some LinkedIn networks becoming very, very strong, where some people on LinkedIn are just a bit more active than others. So for me, this networking piece at the very, very base level is that to understand that whoever that you're communicating with now, right, in your university, in your part-time jobs, in your potential next organization, you always have to bear in mind that one day they might be your boss. You might be needing them to work with you, or you might be needing to work with them, etc., etc. So, however you would to treat those people in the future, you should treat them the same way as you would now. That's a very, very quick summary on networking. Because everything else, your reputation, your visibility, opportunities, they're all interconnected, right? Let's say now, if one of you, let's say Iman, right, were to come to a Shell event, immediately, if let's say I'm there, I would know who Iman is. And, if she needed to say, hey, Reza, I need to speak to, let's say, your colleague over there, can you introduce me to him? Said, yeah, sure. Go ahead, right? Because I know you personally, it becomes very, very simple for you to ask me that question. And that's how it is, right? For a very simple example, it's like that. So if let's say you were to go to a career fair, right, and um, you happen to see me at the Shell booth, right? When you come to say hi and all that, it'd be very easy for me to just introduce you. Say, hey, this is a recruiter, etc., etc. So just take that for example, right? And if you've given an impression already that you're so and so based on your personal brand, it makes it very, very easy for the next situation that arises, if you get what I mean. Um, so yeah, I'll leave it as that. It's actually very, very simple. This networking piece is just how you see it may be different to how I see it. That would make a bigger difference.
Okay. So just now, Mr. Reza have talked about like networking is a little different than just connecting with people on LinkedIn, because on LinkedIn you just connect with people and then you have 500 connections, but you don't actually know who you're connecting with.
Exactly.
So do you have any suggestions or methods on how we could properly connect with those people we have connected on LinkedIn?
Okay, so it's a bit difficult, right? For those people who you've connected with, well, one thing positive out of that is that they accepted your connection, so that's good. Second piece is that do you know why they accepted a connection? Is it because just so to accept it, or maybe they accept it because they have something to give? So I think something that I've personally experienced when people are connecting with me on LinkedIn is that they already have something in mind when they connect with me. So once they send a connection, it's always with a message. Hi so and so, hi Reza. Let's say I came across a role in Shell, etc., etc., and I would love it if you could tell me a little bit more about it, or you can direct me to someone who would be the hiring manager, for example, and any feedback is appreciated, etc., etc. But yeah, he has an outcome. So where I'm coming from is that the person has a outcome with connecting with me on LinkedIn because he wants to know the hiring manager for that specific role. So if me on the receiving end, if I feel like okay, I can provide the name of the hiring manager. If the hiring manager is on LinkedIn, I say why not? Why don't you just connect with the hiring manager directly, right? So that's it. But at least, right, there was an intent and there was a goal for connecting with me for that specific person. So I don't know whether when you guys connecting with people on LinkedIn, you have that specific goal as well, or you're just clicking connect. So again, whether there is a purpose to that connection is something that you would have to request. You have to ask yourself, lah, right? I mean, last time when I was back then, also I was just connecting, just for the connections. But now, a bit more critical of who I connect with, why I'm connecting with them, and how can I help those who are connecting with me when they ask certain questions lah.
Okay. I'm very sure a lot of us students, we are in the category where we just connect with random people. The more connections we have, then we expect it to be better. But I guess now it's time for us to actually reflect that and follow what Mr. Reza has mentioned before. Like, ask yourself, why are you connecting with that person, and what can you expect from that person? Okay.
Yeah.
So there's also like this comment feature on LinkedIn. I have a question from Nazifa. She is asking that, do you think is it important to engage or comment on other posts on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I mean, if you have an opinion you like to put out, it's more than okay for you to have a comment. You know, you want to congratulate someone, you want to give your opinion on something, it's fine, right? As long as you have to understand also, it comes out in your feed. If you go to your profile, wherever you comment, it comes out in your activity feed. So just take that into consideration, right? If let's say you're applying for something, and then the recruiter is going through your profile and they see this comment, if you're okay with it, then it's fine, right? So where I'm coming from is you have to be aware when you're commenting or when you're liking things, when you're congratulating people, it shows up in the feed. And whether that is a perception that you're okay with, then it's up for you to decide.
Yeah, I guess that is something that most of us actually disregard. We didn't realize what we are doing will actually be visible to other people.
Correct. So it's the same, right? So there's always a saying, right? If inshallah, right? If you don't post something that you don't want your mother to see or your wife to see or your kid to see, meaning it's not appropriate. So if you don't think it's appropriate to post it or to say it, then don't say it, because it's in the digital space, it's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you're okay with it, then it's fine.
Yeah, I've also heard people saying that whatever goes on the internet will stay there forever. Even if you try to delete it, someone will always bring it up again.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. So still on the topic of LinkedIn and comments, um, usually when as students, whenever we see a post on LinkedIn, what we usually do is just comment congratulations. I've seen that a lot, and I think I do that a lot as well. So on every post we go through, we just comment congratulations. So that actually doesn't really help with our goal to connect with more people. So maybe, Mr. Raza, do you have any tips on how we could tailor our comments on uh, the post on LinkedIn?
Yeah, so really depends what's your outcome on LinkedIn, right? Some people, I mean, if you are really you have a goal with regards to LinkedIn in terms of uh, making your LinkedIn profile an opinion space where you take, let's say, when I don't know what's the engineering equivalent of, let's say, a Harvard Business Review of something, right? And you want to talk about it and you want to share uh, your opinions on it. Let's say you're taking a share and you're putting a comment. So I believe, let's say I believe so and so and so, and you keep doing those things, and it will just be inside your profile. It just shows that you have, let's say, again, to my earlier point, you have an opinion on these things, and this is sort of something you're interested in, and every time it comes out you will have something to say about it, or you have an opinion about it. But yeah, so it really depends if that's how you want to go about with LinkedIn. But when you're talking about commenting on other people's like normal promotion or successes, then yeah, it's just like that lah. It's just like any other, like Facebook, when people get married or people have a child or people whatever it is, right? It's the same. So it doesn't make a lot of difference. But if you do have a specific goal for your LinkedIn, then you have to figure out the strategies around how, if a recruiter were to look at your LinkedIn, just not based on your resume, on your academic qualifications, etc., then it tells a very nice story. Then that's for you to work on. Yeah, but it's definitely something to think about uh, uh, from your end. Yeah.
All right. So just now we have talked about how networking could open us opportunities, and then how our visibility could, I mean, like how when we network we become more visible, and then our visibility will open up opportunities. So do you have any tips on how to become memorable, because sometimes we are visible but then we are quickly forgotten because we don't have that wow factor that makes us memorable to other people.
Yeah. So that's why in the slides, there's the thing about personal brand, right? So
Mhm.
your personal brand is what makes you memorable, right? Um, so when you connect with people, when you speak with someone, you must, yes, one, you have to give a good impression. But number two, if it's somebody important to you, you would want to make them remember you for something. So of course that something has to be a bit more positive lah, right? It shouldn't be something that you did negatively. But if it's okay, even if it's something that happened negatively, you can always turn it into something positive, right? So hey, remember I was the guy who tripped over and dropped my coffee. Anyways, I of course I would remember, right? But anyways, I actually have something something something. So don't take those negative experiences and think that you cannot switch them, right? Because somebody may remember you for something that happened, but it also gives you an opportunity, or yeah, an opportunity to say hi. Like let's say, yeah, Dr. Azman, let's say Dr. Azman, I was the guy who came in late, whatever, but actually why, yeah. So you can always take these conversations and turn it is really how uh, you feel the risk versus reward lah. Do you are you okay with saying that? And the risk is that, yeah, they may think that you're a fool or whatever, but your side of things is that at least I tried and I've done it, and I'm happy with myself for doing it because this is what I do. I will try it anyway. So yeah, don't be shy. Mm.
All right. Now I have another question from our participants. This one is from Nur Ikmal. He is asking, what is the most important criteria in recruiting new workers for big companies like Shell and Petronas?
I think the criteria is the same. It's dependent on the job description and how well you read the job descriptions and the job requirements, right? You can go onto LinkedIn, you can go and check it out, all the job descriptions and requirements. If you meet those criterias, then it should give you at least a 60% chance. Having said that, when you do get your foot in the door, i.e., your resume helped you to get into into the interview, but how you do the interview is a whole different story, right? Um, so I think any company, doesn't have to be, big companies like Shell or Petronas or whatsoever. It's understanding how this person would be a benefit to me, my team, and my organization. So if you tailor your interview conversations to manage those three questions, how would you help me? How would you help my team? How would you help my organization? And why I should hire you? Then it will then leave it back up to that person interviewing you to decide, right? Between ABC, participant, candidate A, B, and C, whoever that convinced me the most. That would be, yeah, that would be the most generic answer I can give you, because it really depends. To be memorable, again, your brand, right? How, again, when I said, tell me about yourself, that's number one, right? If you are very strong there, the person is really interested in what you're about to say, everything falls in nicely. But if those things are not strong, then it leaves an opportunity for them to stray away from you, right? From what you can really deliver, from what you have to offer. Yeah, this becomes a bit more like a recruiting call, but yes. But I mean, I would do it that way, lah. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Razak. I guess that's all the questions that I have for networking. Do you have any other slides that you would like to show us?
I don't think so. I think that. Oh, sorry. So that was, yeah. So that was the last. I mean, this was the last slide that I included in here because um everybody. I think what I wanted to end it with is that everybody will have various challenges in life. In uni, prior to uni, in work, first job, first career, first pay, everything lah, right? First boss, new boss, different boss, changing of boss, not liking your boss, or loving your boss, and then your boss leaves. So there's many, many, many things that will happen. Um, but for me personally, I think you go back to your personal beliefs, your personal values, and your principles, right? As long as you don't deviate from those, you're okay with whatever you're doing. It's not going against your family values or your principles or your faith or whatsoever, then inshallah you'll be okay. So for me, even at those times of um, very ambiguous piece, like I mentioned before, the year that I was supposed to get married was also the year that I almost lost my job. So if I didn't be proactive in finding for something even within the organization, then that would mean that I'll be suffering a bit more of a difficulty. But that also had to push me to be a bit more resilient, courageous, and understanding what is it that I needed to do at that time. So that's on resilience. So again, companies restructure all the time, be it in the bank, be it in oil and gas, be it in startups. There may come a time where people are evaluated whether to stay or to leave the company, and that's a hard truth of working life, right? But you actually have some control over it. So the controls you have is, again, your personal brand, how well you network, how well you do your work, and how respectful you are as a person, or how you are as an employee, right? So those things will bring you a long way, right? When they are trying to decide, again, candidate A, B, C to stay, A is such and such, B is such and such, C is such and such. So if you were in that position, then you would understand who you would choose. So be that person that you would choose lah, if you were in that situation, right? So that's a quick summary on that. In this courage piece, I think we are always too afraid of what people think of us. We always perceive the worst, but actually, no, not everyone, or out of 100 people, maybe 2% thinks of you that way, right? Always ask for the feedback, to reconfirm what you think people are perceiving you. So again, personal branding, and have the courage to challenge the norm. If people say, "Oh, to get this promotion, you actually need 5 years in this role," ask them why. Why 5 years, right? Why not 2 years? Why not 3 years? What is it that 5 years can give me in that 2 years that I cannot learn, right? Challenge them. And through challenging them, one, you get the correct answer, what you need to do. Two, maybe it can take even shorter time. Or three, maybe it is the way it is and move on. Find something else, right? But if you don't ask that question or you don't challenge it, you'll never know until you reach the 5th year. And what's worse that happens is that when you reach the 5th year, you didn't even get the promotion. Then you wasted that however many years that you've been there. Wasted opportunity doesn't mean that you wasted an experience. Any experience is a good experience, but it's always missed opportunities along the way that you could have taken and grab it, then, right? So but you must be courageous to ask the right questions, the why not, why not me, right? Why, yeah, but don't always compare. Why not? Why me? Why him over me, or why her over me? Don't compare that. Always ask, why not me, right? Don't compare yourself to others, when you are challenging people lah. The other last two goals, yeah. So uh, I'm a competitive person in nature, so I always want to be number one. That's me lah, right? Whenever I play games, I play football or whatever it is I do, I always want to be number one. But I think that competitive spirit, you have to make it a bit healthy. So I also love to try new things. So in this photo is a photo of me at Annapurna. So I don't do hiking. I don't do hiking on whatever in Malaysia. But then a friend of mine said, "Hey, let's go to Annapurna." I said, "Hey, why not? I've never hiked the mountain." So I said I want to tick that off my bucket list. So I just went. I trained a little bit at the gym, and then I just went on and did it. The Annapurna base camp took us about 5 days, but again, you must always challenge yourselves to know that I personally I challenge myself so that any challenges that come, I know that I can do it. Because in the working world, you will always be challenged. Somebody will always think that you cannot do it. Somebody will always think that you're not the right person. Somebody will always think that so and so. But those are all challenges, right? But you have to be strong mentally that I've climbed mountains, I've swam here and there, I've done this, I've done that, whatever it is, whatever your challenges that you've done. These are those things that you will bring with you to increase your confidence in tackling whatever the challenges is at the working level, right? Because you've done something far harder before. This shouldn't be so difficult, right? You maybe have to take the time, or you must research a little bit, must ask the right questions. But where I'm coming from is, yeah, always continue to challenge yourself personally in your personal life so that you can overcome the challenges in your working life. Yeah, and last of all, of course, faith, whatever your principles are. For me, of course, is being very grateful for where I am, the opportunities that's given. I believe, of course, these are all is the key, and how how you pay it back forward, right? Rizki is not just for you. So when I have an opportunity like this, sharing with you guys, I hope you would bring this forward, and it gives a lot of benefit to you, that you can maybe one day in your resume you say, hey, I remember Reza telling me so and so. Or when you meet a person and you don't know what to say, say, hey, I remember Reza telling me this so and so. So that's my goal for today, right? I just hope that I'm able to help some of you in terms of thinking a bit more differently, or using my experiences to help you in your experiences. And if I've done that, that's I've achieved it for this session. So but of course, always be grateful for the opportunities that you're given. Don't take them lightly. So even whatever the job is, yeah, if you do it right, inshallah, I think you'll be rewarded for your sincerity and your efforts that you've put in. So that's where I want to leave you guys on this slide. Then the last slide is just a bit of hard sell. If anything, come to Shell.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Reza, for sharing such valuable information with us. I'm sure that our participants here have gained so much from your talk. And honestly, I didn't realize the time has passed.
Hmm.
It passed so quickly to me because I'm really enjoying this session. So, dear participants, knowledge is having the right answer, but intelligence is asking the right questions. So, we have the speaker of knowledge here with us today. So, we would like to officially open up this platform for all participants to ask questions and clear out their doubts. So, if you have something to inquire, just drop your question in the chat box or the group chat, and I will read them out. If you would like to ask your question directly to our speaker, also you may feel free to unmute your mic and ask.
Right.
Um, there's one question already. So this is from Ahmad Wafi. He is
Yeah.
asking that I heard that the Shell company oil and gas has been bought by HRC. So can you tell me more about it? And he said, sorry if it is a little out of context.
Yeah, so it is a bit out of context, but I am authorized to answer on behalf. So the company that you're talking about is actually the old refinery Port Dickson. So it was sold to them, yes, but that's about it, right? So assets in any company can be bought or sold. It's just how things work, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that you're selling the company. It's just selling of an asset. Like for me, selling a car to you that I've used for 9 years, you may have it as a brand new car for you. So that's the difference now. I may not want to, or I may be looking for a different asset now that I've already completed with this asset. So this is how I would go about it, if that's your question.
All
It's
right, I
not
hope
the
it
it's not the
answers.
company. So the question
Mhm.
the point here is not the company has been bought. It is the asset that was bought.
All right, I hope that clears out the understanding that we had just now. So, okay, we have another question from our participant. This participant is asking, what are the signs that recruiters look out to determine if the candidate is or has good communication skills? Because nowadays, people generally memorize answer scripts.
Talk to more recruiters. um, but I think communication skills. So it would. So what is communication, right? So communication. The communication that the recruiter would be receiving is one, your resume, two, maybe a cover letter, three, maybe a video if that's part of the deal in terms of how recruiters work nowadays. So all those things, if you're saying that you're a strong communicator or I communicate well or I have strong communication skills, then your resume, your CV, your video has to show that, right? It cannot have. So a strong communicator is whatever you feel a strong communicator is, that it has to be that. So you cannot put something in your resume that you yourself are not very confident about saying. So maybe um, communication skills can be in a resume, maybe English proficiency. So if you're saying in the scale of 1 to 5, your proficiency is 5, then the resume should have an English proficiency of level 5 lah, if you understand what I mean, right? So, but again, communicating can be a different channel. So maybe you've managed, let's say, the team's Instagram account, and you write all the captions and you manage it all. So maybe you have a strong uh, uh, written strong written communication skill, then it will show, right? When you show the link to the Instagram account, and if the recruiter does actually go and have a look and all that, then it will show. So that's how I would go about it. So whatever you put in your resume, have the right examples to support it. And if your resume says, good communication, your resume should also communicate well to the recruiter without the recruiter asking you.
All right, thank you very much. So, this next question is from Muhammad Hakimi. Hakimi is asking, wait, let me check back the question. Okay, how can networking on LinkedIn secure a job or an interview?
So I think I touched upon this just now on your connection with somebody on LinkedIn, right? So if you connect with the person and with the message, hi, I'm so and so, I'm this and that. I would like to connect with you for so and so lah. There's a specific goal you're connecting with the person, and if the person is um, happy enough to connect with you, have the conversation, have a chat, right? Like a normal chat, then the conversations can move, right? So maybe it's really dependent on how it's the same. If it's the same as though you were to meet face to face. If someone, let's say Iman, will come to me, hey Reza, I actually want to know more about this and this and this. Do you have the time to have a conversation? So I will say, okay. Then we have the conversation. Then after that, suddenly, hey, Teresa, do you have? I actually saw LinkedIn. I saw this role of so and so. Can you show me? Can you show me the right person to talk to, or would you know anything about this job? that you can tell me about, or what do you think of this line? What does that mean? So you can always clarify that, right? But because you already have the connection, but if you don't have it, you cannot you cannot like suddenly so randomly like ask, like you never connected with me, then you just ask me, hey, I saw this job scope, can you tell me about more about it? Depends like on my mood on that day, right? Maybe I would, maybe I don't, but that's me, and not I don't know how other people would react or in LinkedIn. So that's why every time you have a face-to-face opportunity, when things like this, right? I'm sure you do this a lot, these webinars and all that. Take the opportunity to be visible, right? Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. So, okay, we have one more question. This one is from Nazira. She's asking a question that is very common among students. So, how do you correct your classmate or group member without offending that person?
I guess you have to be as polite as possible, lah, right? I mean, you're not correcting a person, right? Maybe it's a difference of opinion. So I would do it is like, let's say it's Iman. So let's say, Iman, I hear you, right? I hear your thoughts, I hear your opinions, I respect them. However, I believe, so and so and so. But if you don't agree with me, you can also tell me, right? But I do want to have this uh, as as open as possible, because this is a safe space, and tell me if I'm being a bit too forward whatsoever. So you're just being very courteous in how you are telling the person your opinions differ, but you also cannot be so egoistic that you think your opinion is correct, right? So you have to allow them to challenge you when you are challenging them. So it becomes two-way. But this is not something a lot of people do, even in the working world. So don't worry so much. It's part and parcel. Some people are a bit more stronger, have a stronger ego, or unable to accept certain things, but it's okay. Again, live within your principles, your values. If that's something that you stay true to, then it's fine.
All right. Next, we'll go on to this question from Azri. He is asking, how did you decide to go on in this career? And like before, you have said that why not try everything? So how did you know that this is the career path for you?
All right. So I think Azri is the Eco Planet ex-captain, or yeah. Anyways, that name is familiar. So how did you decide to go in this career? Like before, you said why not try everything? How did you know that this is the one? I never knew. The correct answer is that I never knew. Um, I thought I would stay in Starbucks for a long, long time, even when I joined. Or I thought, when I was in Fly FM, I would become a Fly FM announcer, whatsoever. So you really never know until you join the actual organization, right? So for me, in Shell, when I progressed from HR to then the different career jumps, then I felt that they were giving me an opportunity as I was giving them an opportunity, right? So the opportunities were reciprocal lah. So they were giving me what I wanted, which is progression, a steady work environment, or a very comfortable work environment. And so as long as my values align with my organization, I would continue to provide the same as what they will provide to me. Right? There's a very, very good saying is that, don't work more than you're paid for. Don't work for more than you're paid to do. So again, if you are paid to do so and so, if you've done it and everybody is okay with it, and it's okay, and you progress and etc., it means you have a very strong work-life balance. And if that's something that you want out of a job, then you can stick with the job. But if that job is not giving you the satisfaction, you're not getting your progression, or you don't have any work-life balance, you're stressed, you're unhealthy, then maybe the job is not the best for you. Maybe it's time to look elsewhere, and it's okay to look elsewhere. Everybody has an equal right for opportunities, right? And you as an employer have an equal right also to leave. So know your rights.
All right, I hope that answers Azri's question. And I would like to point out that is also like a form of like connecting because Mr. Raza could recognize Azri.
Hmm. Correct.
Yes, and Azri is the former president of UiTM Eco Planet. Okay, I guess we could open up for one last question. This is also a question that is very common from students. So, how important is it to be involved in extracurricular activities and organizations?
How important it is, it's depending back to you lah. I mean, for me, it was important for me back then to join extracurricular activities in uni because I didn't want to just study. I wanted to make friends outside of my network, outside of my psychology and communication classes, right? So I wanted to meet people with the business. I wanted to meet the engineering students. I wanted to meet the medical students. So how I did that was that I played football with them, or I went to the pool. I mean, the pool class, or yeah, I would join in those extracurricular activities for me to network because I don't enjoy knowing the same people all the time, especially when I'm in a new place like a university, right? There's so many people you can meet, there's so many people you can know, and yeah. So for me, a lot of them, I would do it via my interest as well. So my interest at the time was football or gym, so I would meet these people during those times. And when I joined those, of course, in a club, or let's say that for Azri, for example, right, you are given an opportunity to become the president, which means as the president of the club, you have the opportunity to network people, let's say like me. It's how you take those opportunities forward, right, in your career. So now let's say Azri, he has my number. So he can say, hey, Cik Reza, I actually nak tanya ni. I would happily answer. But if you are not in that club, you're not the president, you don't have the opportunities. Again, it's all opportunities, right? It's how you make full use of these opportunities. If you don't join these clubs, or you don't do these extracurricular activities, maybe you don't have the same opportunities. And it's not wrong also. Maybe you have a different kind of opportunity. You don't have to join all the clubs. Is what I'm saying is that whatever you join, look for the opportunities. Or every time you're given an opportunity, make full use of the opportunity.
All right. I would like to close the Q&A session. Participants are very interested in the career path that Mr. Reza has shown just now. So this participant is asking, how do you handle the stress of such high-paced work?
Stress of high-paced work. Wow. So
Mhm.
actually, in Shell, we don't stress our staff. So just kidding.
Okay.
So stress is very subjective, right? Some people are stressed at the littlest things, and some people are not. So it really differs on your stress receptors. Maybe you're stressed because you don't know how to do it, or you're stressed because you don't have enough time, or you're stressed because you're not paid enough, or you're stressed because you're unhealthy, or you're stressed because you don't like it, or you hate it, right? So again, the stress is very subjective. How you manage it is entirely how up to you. For me, I don't believe in the word stress. Uh, that's just a personal thing, because you can always overcome it, right? There's always ways around it. It's either you go out, have a walk, think about it, come back, do it, or maybe it's not the right time for you to think about it later, or just do it and you won't be stressed anymore. Those kind of different methods that you can take to, I don't know, cheat yourself, in another word, right? Some people like to go to the gym, so they go to the gym, they come back out, they feel so good, then nothing stresses them out anymore. Or some people like to go out and eat. Go and eat lah, it's okay lah. Go and eat, then come back, then you can do it, or have a coffee whatsoever. So again, it's very subjective. You just, at the psychological level, you have to understand why these stresses are causing you stress, and if you can cut it there and not let it develop further, that's the best way to go about it lah, right? So whatever lah. Some people like to listen to music. Some people like to go and call their best friend. whatever it needs to do, just go and do it.
All right. So I hope that resonates with our participants. Remember that stress is a psychological thing, so it's either you can cheat it or you can find your very own ways to handle it.
Mm.
So I would like to say thank you very much to Mr. Reza. I think that was a very engaging Q&A session. I really enjoy the questions and the answers. So I hope that the explanation given have answered and clarified all of the questions that our participants have. So as much as we would love to extend the session, unfortunately time is running out. And in fact, it is already for 7 minutes. So this by far has been an amazing event, and of course, this is only made possible because of everyone's contribution. So allow us to take a few more minutes of your time and invite the Director of Communication and Career Talk with Shell Ambassador Nur Nazifa binti Azhar to share her thoughts.
Assalamualaikum. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, loud and
Oh,
clear.
yes.
So first, Assalamualaikum and good afternoon to our speaker, members of the UiTM Eco Planet Club, the Committee of Communication and Career Talk, and the respective audience. I hope everyone is in their best shape despite our pandemic. I am Nur Nazifa, your program director for today. First of all, I would like to thank you, Mr. Reza, for being here with us today. Also, I would like to thank all the participants for being here today. It took great effort and commitment to be here despite our busy schedule and the holiday. So my ultimate hope would be everyone got the fullest input you could get and spread it among your friends. I believe it would be really nice to share something beneficial with other people. I also hope that the input will help you either as a student or in your career path. Lastly, I would like to express my appreciation to my committee. They worked their fingers to the bone to make this happen. Let's hope there will be another event with Share sometime soon. Do follow us on Instagram and Twitter for more updates. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Nur Nazifa, and hopefully we will have similar events in the future. So we will now move on to our photography session. I would like to invite Firdaus to conduct the photography session.
Okay, so hi everyone. We will be giving you guys about 1 minute for everyone to prepare for the photography session. So for the participants, please use the background that we have provided in the WhatsApp group and open your camera. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reza, for very
Pleasure.
nice and very good sharings. I learned a lot from you.
Oh, thank you. I hope it made sense. Sometimes I melalut juga.
There is a lot of points that I get from your talk just now.
Thank you, Amila.
Maybe every singles of us, all the students can recruit. Let's say this year or this semester, you can recruit one new members to your club, then it will make your clubs happening.
So university is still not open yet, is it, Professor?
Actually, partly open, but we are actually in the fasa 4. Okay?
Oh, phase 4.
So stage 4, and then actually some of them already in campus,
Okay.
but critical one, which is we have 10 categories to be allowed to enter to the campus. So only that numbers lah. About I think inshallah about 6,000 or 7,000 already in campus.
Oh, ramai. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Hope you
But-
guys are okay.
But you know the full numbers actually about 30,000. Actually, about 20%.
Oh my gosh. 30,000 students. UiTM Shah Alam. Crazy. Amazing. Again, guys, you guys have to stand out of 1 out of 30,000. So that's a challenge.
Actually, for the whole Malaysia, we have about 170 something, about 160,000, 80,000, 180,000,
Wow.
around that for the whole Malaysia.
Almost 250,000 students.
Yeah.
Ramai.
Well, honestly, I think the figure makes me feel nervous now, knowing that I have to fight with like over 180,000 other students.
It's okay. There's only 30 plus million Malaysians total. So it's fine.
Okay, so is everyone ready?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, so ready? 1, 2, 3. Again, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Thank you, guys. Okay, I will pass back to Iman.
Thank you, Firdaus.
All right, thank you very much for those for helping us out with the pictures. So, dear participants, the photography session marks the end of our talk today. Once again, I would like to thank our speaker, Mr. Reza Muhammad Arif, our Dean of Student Affairs Department, Professor Engineer Technologist Dr. Ahmad Asari, and all of the participants for spending your precious time to be with us today. I would also like to apologize for any mistakes that I or the team have made during the course of this event. It is a pleasure to have all of you here today with us. One last reminder, please scan the QR code and fill in the feedback form before you leave this meeting. Link for the feedback form is also included in the chat box. Thank you and have a great day. See you next time.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay,
See you
thank
soon.
everyone. Thank
Take
you.
care. Stay safe. Bye.
Thank you.
Hope we can invite you again, Mr. Reza.
Inshallah, boleh. Let me know.
All right. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Reza.
Bye.
Thank you so much